Mystical awakening in Christianity is a transformative journey that unfolds in distinct stages of spiritual growth. Are you on the path to deeper spiritual insight? Have you ever wondered where you are in your mystical journey? Christian mysticism teaches that spiritual awakening is not a single event, but a process that brings the soul closer to God step by step. In this video, we'll explore the 7 stages of mystical awakening, helping you identify which stage you might currently be in, and why understanding this could be crucial for your spiritual transformation. Stage 1. Awakening to Divine Presence. Stage 1 of mystical awakening is the awakening to divine presence, where a person first becomes deeply aware of God's presence in their life in a profound way. This stage often marks a turning point where the individual experiences a shift, either suddenly or gradually, that brings them into greater spiritual awareness. It's as though a veil has been lifted and the person begins to sense that there is more to life than the material world around them. They might feel an internal stirring or a moment of clarity that awakens them to the reality of God's presence. This awakening often evokes strong emotions, including awe, gratitude, and a newfound sense of purpose. The person may feel overwhelmed by the realization that life is filled with deeper spiritual meaning and that God is intimately involved in their personal journey. It's common to feel as though the world has shifted. What once seemed ordinary now holds profound significance, as though everything has a divine connection. This stage is filled with wonder and a growing sense of excitement about the possibilities of connecting more deeply with God. A powerful example of this stage can be found in the Bible with Paul's conversion on the road to Damascus. Paul, who had been persecuting Christians, experienced a sudden and overwhelming awareness of Christ's presence. This divine encounter completely transformed his life, sparking the beginning of his spiritual journey. Though most people may not experience such a dramatic event, this stage of awakening often includes a personal moment of realization that God is actively present in their life. During this phase, individuals are often called to explore their faith more deeply. They might feel drawn to prayer, scripture, or other spiritual practices that help them nurture their relationship with God. This initial awakening serves as the foundation for the entire mystical journey, opening the door to further spiritual growth. There is a sense of longing to know God more fully, and this desire propels the individual to seek a deeper connection with the divine. The awakening to God's presence marks the beginning of the soul's transformative journey, where the path to greater spiritual insight and union with God begins. Stage 2. The Call to Purification. In Stage 2 of the mystical awakening, the call to purification, the individual feels a profound need to cleanse their heart, mind, and soul in order to draw closer to God. After experiencing the initial awakening to divine presence, the person becomes increasingly aware of the spiritual impurities and attachments that distance them from the divine. This realization often sparks a deep desire for repentance, prayer, and transformation as the individual seeks to align their life with God's will. At this stage, the focus shifts inward as the individual begins to notice the areas of their life that require purification. Sinful habits, negative thoughts, and worldly distractions become more apparent, and the soul feels called to shed these burdens in order to grow spiritually. This process often involves a period of deep reflection and self-examination, where the person must confront their personal flaws and shortcomings. It's a time of spiritual and moral cleansing, where the individual becomes more mindful of their thoughts, actions, and desires, striving to purify themselves in the eyes of God. Christian mystics like Saint John of the Cross and Saint Teresa of Avila describe this stage as one of detachment. Saint John of the Cross speaks of the necessity to detach from earthly pleasures and attachments, viewing them as distractions that can hinder one's journey toward union with God. Saint Teresa of Avila similarly emphasizes the importance of inner purification, viewing it as a crucial step toward deeper communion with the divine. This stage, while necessary, can be challenging. It requires self-discipline, humility, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths about oneself. The soul must be willing to let go of the comforts and attachments that once seemed so important, recognizing that they are obstacles on the spiritual path. The desire for purity often leads to a stronger commitment to prayer, fasting, and other spiritual practices that help the person draw closer to God. The call to purification is a time of deep transformation, where the individual begins to shed their old ways and open themselves up to spiritual growth. It is through this purification process that the soul becomes more receptive to God's presence, clearing away the distractions that once clouded the connection with the divine. This stage, though difficult, is a vital part of the mystical journey, where the soul is prepared for further spiritual awakening and union with God. Stage 3. Illumination of the soul. Stage 3 of the mystical awakening is known as the illumination of the soul, a phase where the soul begins to receive divine light and understanding. At this point in the journey, the individual starts to experience profound moments of spiritual clarity and insight, feeling as though they are being touched by God's wisdom. This illumination doesn't come all at once, but gradually unfolds as the person deepens their prayer life and enters into more frequent contemplation. It's a time when the soul becomes more attuned to God's presence, often experiencing moments of revelation or divine guidance. Mystics describe this stage as one where the barriers between the soul and God seem to thin, allowing greater access to divine truth. Prayer becomes more profound, not just a practice, but a living conversation with God. In these moments of deep contemplation, the individual may feel as though they are being shown insights into God's nature that they hadn't grasped before. This could manifest as a clearer understanding of Scripture, a heightened awareness of God's voice in everyday life, or moments where the soul feels undeniably guided by God's will. A powerful biblical example of this stage is Moses receiving the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. In this moment of divine illumination, Moses encountered God directly, receiving not only the commandments but also deeper insight into God's will for his people. Similarly, those in the illumination of the soul stage may feel they are being shown specific truths or directions for their spiritual path, guided by a divine light that brings clarity and purpose. Feelings of joy and peace often accompany this stage as the individual senses they are getting closer to understanding God's purpose for their life. There is a sense of alignment, as though the soul is moving in harmony with God's will, and this brings immense spiritual satisfaction. The struggle and purification of earlier stages give way to a more peaceful state of being, where God's presence feels near and the path ahead becomes clearer. In this stage, the soul is being prepared for deeper union with God as the individual grows in wisdom and insight. The illumination they receive becomes a guiding light, helping them navigate their spiritual journey with greater confidence and purpose. The sense of joy and peace felt in this stage reassures the individual that they are drawing closer to God, receiving glimpses of the divine truth that will lead them forward on their path to full spiritual awakening. Stage 4. The dark night of the soul. Stage 4 of the mystical awakening is known as the dark night of the soul, a period often characterized by intense spiritual dryness or desolation. Despite their efforts to grow closer to God, individuals in this stage may feel as though He is distant or even absent. This experience can be deeply confusing and painful, as the soul, once illuminated with divine light, suddenly feels plunged into darkness. Yet, this stage is a critical part of the journey toward deeper union with God. Coined by St. John of the Cross, the dark night is not a period of punishment or abandonment, but one of profound purification. During this time, the soul is stripped of attachments, both to worldly desires and to any spiritual consolations it might have previously relied on. It's as if God removes the external signs of His presence to teach the soul to rely on pure faith. This stage requires the individual to trust in God's love and presence even when they cannot feel or see it, leading to a deeper, more mature faith. Though this period can feel like a spiritual wilderness, It is necessary for the soul's transformation. The dark night teaches a deeper reliance on God, where faith is no longer dependent on feelings or spiritual experiences, but is grounded in a trust that transcends circumstance. Mystics describe this stage as one of profound interior testing, where the soul is being prepared for greater intimacy with God. It strips away everything that is not of God, forcing the soul to surrender completely. For many, this stage is the most challenging, as it often feels like a period of spiritual exile. But it is through this stripping away that the soul is refined. The dark night purifies in ways that the earlier stages cannot, making room for a deeper union with God that is not based on emotions or external experiences, but on a pure, steadfast relationship with the divine. This stage is essential for spiritual maturity. Though painful, it readies the soul for the final stages of mystical union, where God's presence will be experienced in a more profound and sustaining way. The darkness of this night is temporary, but its impact on the soul is lasting, shaping it for the deeper union that is to come. Stage 5. The stage of union with God's will. Stage 5 of the mystical awakening is the union with God's will, a period in which the soul, having passed through the darkness and trials of earlier stages, finds itself fully aligned with God's desires. After enduring the purification of the dark night of the soul, the individual reaches a point of profound peace and surrender, where personal desires fade, and God's will becomes the guiding force in their life. At this stage, the individual experiences a deep and abiding sense of trust in God's plan. They no longer feel the inner conflict of earlier stages, but instead rest in the knowledge that God's will is perfect, even when it is not fully understood. This surrender is not passive but active, where the soul consciously chooses to align every aspect of life, thoughts, actions, and prayers, with divine purpose. There is a sense of harmony, where the person's entire being is directed toward fulfilling God's will, not out of obligation, but out of love and trust. Mystics like Saint Teresa of Avila have described this union as an intimate resting in God's presence. In her writings, she speaks of this stage as a place of deep spiritual intimacy, where the soul feels as though it is enveloped in God's love. The striving, doubt, and struggle of earlier stages are replaced by a settled sense of peace. The soul, having been stripped of its attachments and distractions, now feels securely anchored in God's will. This stage brings a profound shift in how the individual approaches life. Instead of striving for control or certainty, they live in a state of surrender, knowing that their purpose is to align with God's presence and desires. Actions are not driven by personal ambition, but by the quiet guidance of divine will. This alignment results in a spiritual contentment, where the individual no longer feels the need to search or question, but is deeply settled in the knowledge that they are walking in step with God. The union with God's will is characterized by this intimate relationship, where the soul rests in divine love, guidance, and purpose. The person no longer feels the need to strive for validation or fulfillment through worldly means, but experiences a deep spiritual contentment that comes from living in complete harmony with God's plan. It is a stage of profound peace and joy, where the soul is fully aligned with the divine. Stage 6. The mystical marriage. Stage 6 of the mystical awakening is the mystical marriage, a term famously described by Saint Teresa of Avila in her Interior Castle. In this stage, the soul moves beyond mere surrender to God's will and enters into an intimate union with the divine. The mystical marriage is not about God being a distant figure, but rather experiencing Him as an intimate partner, deeply involved in every aspect of life. This union is marked by a profound sense of closeness, love, and mutual indwelling, where the boundaries between the soul and God seem to dissolve. The person in this stage no longer feels separated from God. Instead, they experience His presence continuously and intimately. Every action, thought, and prayer is touched by God's presence, and the soul feels a constant flow of divine love. This union is not merely intellectual or spiritual. It is an embodied experience of living fully in God's presence, where the soul feels deeply embraced by divine love. Mystics describe this stage as one of profound peace and joy, where God is no longer sought outside of oneself, but recognized as dwelling within. A beautiful biblical parallel to this stage is found in the Song of Solomon, often interpreted as an allegory for the mystical marriage between the soul and God. In the same way that the lovers in the Song of Solomon experience a deep, passionate, and intimate love, the soul in this stage experiences an overwhelming sense of being loved and embraced by God. This divine love is not fleeting or conditional. It is constant and unconditional, transforming the way the soul experiences life. The mystical marriage is considered the pinnacle of the mystical journey. It is rare and reserved for those who have undergone significant purification and transformation in earlier stages. The soul, having endured trials, darkness, and purification, now rests in a state of divine union. In this stage, the individual no longer strives for closeness with God. It is simply experienced. There is no more searching or yearning, only the reality of being fully united with the divine in a way that permeates every aspect of life. This stage represents the fulfillment of the soul's deepest longing for union with God. It is the moment when the soul realizes that it is not only loved by God, but fully united with Him, experiencing the depth of His presence in a way that goes beyond words. The mystical marriage is the culmination of the soul's journey, where divine love becomes the very fabric of existence, and the soul is fully embraced by the divine. Stage 7. The transforming union, divine union. Stage 7 of the mystical awakening is known as the transforming union or divine union, the final stage where the soul becomes fully united with God. In this transformative stage, the individual transcends the limitations of the self and enters into a profound oneness with the divine. The sense of separation between God and the individual dissolves entirely, and God is no longer experienced as external or distant, but as a living, vibrant presence within the soul. This union is the culmination of the entire mystical journey, where the soul is wholly transformed by God's love and grace. Mystics like St. John of the Cross describe this stage as the ultimate goal of spiritual awakening, where the soul has been purified and prepared for complete union with God. The transformation is not just emotional or intellectual, it is a total spiritual metamorphosis. The soul, now fully aligned with divine will, experiences God as the core of its being. The presence of God becomes as natural as breath, a constant peaceful awareness that permeates every aspect of the individual's life. In this stage, the person lives in perpetual awareness of God's presence, leading to complete spiritual fulfillment. This sense of divine union brings an overwhelming peace that surpasses all understanding. There is no longer any longing for God because the soul is already in full communion with Him. This divine peace is accompanied by a profound joy and love that flow effortlessly, often manifesting as compassionate service to others. The individual becomes a vessel of God's love, naturally reflecting His grace and kindness in all interactions. The transforming union is marked by the overflowing of divine love that extends outward. This love is not limited to personal spiritual experience, but radiates through acts of service and compassion. The mystic in this stage feels compelled to share the love they have received with others, embodying Christ's love in their actions and words. The person becomes a living testament to God's transformative power, embodying divine peace and joy in a way that touches and uplifts those around them. This stage is the pinnacle of the spiritual journey. The soul has reached its highest potential, fully united with God and living in a state of divine love, grace, and peace. This union is the fulfillment of the soul's deepest longing, and through it, the individual reflects God's love in all things, having become one with the divine. The 7 stages of mystical awakening represent a profound spiritual journey, with each stage playing a vital role in bringing the soul closer to God. Take time to reflect on your own experiences and consider which stage you may be in, remembering that everyone's path to awakening is unique. Though the journey is not always linear, each stage offers its own challenges and blessings. Wherever you are, trust that God is with you, guiding you through every step toward deeper union and understanding. Embrace the process, knowing that each stage is part of your divine transformation.